President Trump is welcoming North Korea's apparent openness to negotiations about its nuclear program. North Korean leader Kim Jong Un reportedly told South Korean officials this week that he's willing to discuss giving up his country's nuclear weapons and suspending its nuclear program during any talks. President Trump called the statements very positive. It's not yet clear whether the U.S. would meet the North Koreans. Republican Senator Cory Gardner of Colorado is on the Foreign Relations Committee. He chairs the subcommittee on East Asia, the Pacific, and international cybersecurity policy. He's with us from Capitol Hill for an interview you'll only see on CBS This Morning. Senator, good morning. What do you make of North Korea's position? Are they reacting to sanctions? Are they pausing to reload? Or is this a part of a long pattern of kind of cat and mouse?
There is no doubt that the sanctions that have been put in place against the Kim regime are starting to work. I've talked to officials at the CIA, the State Department. They're starting to feel the pressure from significant sanctions, not only from the United States, but from our allies and partners around the globe. But we've also been here before, and so we have to take this, certainly it's positive, but we have to take this sign, this gesture to talk, not only with a grain of salt, but with perhaps an entire salt block.
So, Senator, what is the next move, as you'd advise, for the administration in terms of not being fooled again from what the North Koreans have done before?
In the past, the United States has lived up to our end of the bargain, where we've entered into promises or agreements with North Korea only to see the North Koreans break their end of the bargain. And so what this administration needs to continue to do is apply maximum pressure, as it has, continuing to engage China and other countries around the world to enforce stricter standards and stricter sanctions, to make sure the United Nations continues to put pressure on them, and then go after the heinous slave labor practices of the North Korean regime, to cut off even more dollars that go back to prop up Kim Jong Un. So there's plenty of action that can be taken, and this administration needs to take every single one of them.
Let me ask you, the South Korean leader that met with Kim Jong Un said that he received a pledge from Kim Jong Un that they would halt testing if during these negotiations. Do you believe them when they say that?
Well, if they halt testing, that doesn't mean that they halt their progress. I think they've reached the stage in their nuclear program where, sure, they can say, look, we're not going to test, but in the meantime, they continue to develop supply lines, develop new technologies, testing through computer models. It doesn't mean that they give up or completely halt their nuclear program. That's a big difference. But I think it's important to go back to what they have said they would do in the past. They've actually said they would do more in terms of agreeing with us to give up their nuclear program. This is one of their lesser promises they've made. And so we must continue maximum pressure and not give up on our desire, our demand of complete, verifiable, irreversible denuclearization.
So how optimistic are you, Senator? You tweeted yesterday that we need to make sure, I'm paraphrasing, that we avoid the mistakes we made in the past. Are you feeling optimistic, and what mistakes were you referring to?
Well, again, the mistakes that we have made in terms of believing that the Kim family, his father, his grandfather, was serious about the actions that he was going to take. There's no doubt that we have to have a resolution. And again, I agree, this is a positive development. But will that positive development lead to concrete results of denuclearization? And that's what we have to have. So I am skeptical. This is a good thing. But we have to make sure that we're not fooled. As the old saying goes, not fooled twice, shame on us.
What do you make of the resignation of Gary Cohn yesterday from the White House? What do you make of that? And the president has tweeted, there's no chaos here.
Yeah, I think the op-tempo of the White House, as you know, is incredibly different than many other White House administrations. I think this is probably something that Gary has thought about long and hard over the past several months, as he obviously has different things that he could be doing in the private sector. I look forward to sitting down and talking with him about how we can continue to work with the administration on trade agreements that are, in his remaining time, trade agreements that are fair to the American people, but also don't punish the American people through punitive trade actions.
But the precipitating event in this case was the president's steel tariffs. You are in charge of getting Republicans elected. Most Republicans don't agree with those tariffs. How do they, and Paul Ryan has said those tariffs are going to walk back some of the gains from the tax cut. How do you sell Republicans to the public when, on the one hand, taxes are helping them, but in this case, according to Paul Ryan, it's hurting them?
Well, there's no doubt that the president campaigned on this issue, so there's not a surprise to anyone who was following the campaign that the president made this decision. I think he's right to say we need trade agreements that are fair. Where I disagree with, of course, is on the decision to impose a tariff on steel, aluminum, or to withdraw from NAFTA that could actually hurt the American people. I represent a state that has a lot of great beer industries, a lot of farmers who are very worried about the impact steel, aluminum tariffs could have on them. Trade deals like NAFTA are very important to them. So let's make sure they're fair. Let's make sure they're good for the American people. But if we take the wrong economic policies, and I think imposing a tariff is, then it could lead to higher costs on the American consumer. It could cost jobs instead of saving jobs, and that's not the right step. So I look forward to continuing to work with the White House to make sure that we do the right thing and not something that could hurt.
All right, Senator Gardner, thanks so much for being with us.